Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever wanted to build your own app, but kind of got scared off by the idea of becoming, a full-blown programmer? Well, stick around because today we're going to dive into how you can build some seriously powerful app logic using skills you probably already have.
So let's start with this question, because it's really the key to everything. Just think about it for a second. Imagine taking all that knowledge you have from creating spreadsheets, the formulas, the logic, the way you make cells react to each other, and just applying it directly to building a real working app. It's a total game changer of an idea.
And look, this isn't just some hypothetical idea. This is the whole point behind a language called PowerFX. It was literally created with this one principle in mind: to let the hundreds of millions of people who already know their way around Excel become app creators too.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll break down what makes PowerFX feel so much like Excel. Then, we're going to get our hands dirty with the building blocks of all logic, the simple if function and its more powerful cousin, the switch function. We'll pit them against each other so you know exactly which one to grab for the job, and then we'll wrap up with the big picture.
Okay, first things first. Let's really get into what makes PowerFX tick. Seriously, think of it as the language of Excel, but supercharged for making apps. All those hours you might have spent writing formulas, well, they're about to pay off in a huge way.
Okay, so what makes this so special? It really comes down to these key ideas. The consistency with Excel is a really big deal. Instead of learning some new syntax like hello.length, you just use len hello, exactly like you would in the spreadsheet. And this declarative thing, it just means you tell the app what you want the end result to be. You don't have to write out all the boring step-by-step instructions. Just like in Excel, you just say equals A1 plus B1, and it just works. PowerFX does the same thing for your app, automatically handling all the complex stuff behind the scenes.
Okay, that's the theory. But how does this actually work when you're building something? Well, every app in the world needs to make decisions. It needs to choose a path, a yes or no, of this or that. And you guessed it, just like in Excel, the number one tool for that is the good old if function.
At its core, the if function is super simple. It just asks one question: is this thing true? If the answer is yes, it does one thing. If the answer is no, it does something else. That's it. It's a binary choice, the most fundamental piece of logic there is.
And if you break it down, it's always just these three parts. First, you've got your test, the condition. Like, is the price greater than 100? Second, what happens if that's true? And third, what happens if it's false? That's all there is to it. Condition, true result, false result.
Okay, let's make this real with an example. Here, the condition is this item.taxable. So that's probably just a little checkbox in your data that's either true or false. If it's true, the function spits out the text taxable. If it's false, you get non-taxable. See? Simple, clean, and you can immediately understand what it does. You could use this to show the tax status of a product right in your app. So if is perfect when you have two choices, yes or no, this or that. But what happens when life gets more complicated? What if you have 3 or 4 or even 10 different paths to go down? Well, that's when we need a more elegant tool. That's where the switch function comes in.
And that is the exact problem we're talking about. I mean, you could just stack a bunch of if functions inside of each other, but it gets really messy really fast. It's a nightmare to read and even worse to try and fix later. There's got to be a better way, right?
And here it is. Just look at the difference here. It's night and day. On the left, that nested if is just a mess, a total tangled knot. It works, but good luck figuring out what it does 6 months from now. But now look at the switch on the right. So much cleaner. It's so easy to read. It just says, hey, look at the preferred phone field, and here's a simple list of pairs. If it's mobile phone, use this. If it's main phone, use that. It's so much easier to understand at a glance.
So basically, with switch, you give it one thing to look at, and then you just give it a list of pairs. If you see this, then do that. It goes down your list and stops at the very first match it finds, which also makes it really efficient. Okay, so we've met our two main tools, if and switch. Now the big question is, when to use which one? Because picking the right tool for the job is going to make your life so much easier and your app logic way easier to manage. And honestly, this table makes it super simple. Here's the rule of thumb. If you've got a simple, binary, yes or no choice, use if. It's perfect for that, super readable. But the second you're checking one value against 3 or 4 or more different possibilities, switch is your new best friend. It is just way more readable and easier to maintain. All right, let's wrap this up.
We started with this really simple idea, making apps like Excel, and now we've got these two powerhouse functions that let you build real decision-making right into your apps. This is how you start making your apps feel smart.
So if you remember anything from this, remember these three things. First, PowerFX lets you use your Excel skills to build apps, period. Second, if is your go-to for any simple true or false decision. And third, when things get more complex and you have multiple options, always choose switch. It'll keep your logic clean and easy to read.
And that's really all there is to it. You now have the basic building blocks to make your app smart, to make it react to user input in different situations. So the only question I have for you is, what's the first decision your app is going to make? Now go start building.